So we've created a table arrangement for our business card with 2 columns and 2 rows. So now it's time to start placing some buttons in here and getting the functionality of this app working. The first button we're going to add is going to help us add the phone call functionality within App Inventor. So essentially when we're done with the app, you'll be able to click on this button and it'll automatically make a phone call to any number that we designate. So let's go ahead and grab a button and throw it in the top left cell. You'll see again that we have our 4 different cells here. And I'm just going to change this button up a little bit. I'm going to make the font size a little bigger. I'll change the text to call me. And since this is going to get to be a little more complex app, I'm going to rename the button component here to the call me button. That way when we open our blocks editor, we'll know which button we're looking at when we have 4 buttons later on. Okay, so we have our call me button. So when we press this, we want it to make a phone call for us. Where we're going to find the phone call functionality is under the social drawer. And you'll see here that we have one labeled phone call. And I'm going to drag that in to my components viewer. And we'll see, whoop, it popped down to the bottom here. So this is one of those non-visible components. It's a component that when we attach it to the button in the blocks editor, will actually make the button perform an action, in this case a phone call. So while we have this highlighted, I'm going to go ahead and rename that as well. And I'm going to name it phone call starter, just so that I can be sure when I'm in the blocks editor, I know, hey, this is one of those non-visible components that will perform an action for me, and it's not the phone call button. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is designate our phone number, and in the properties section here you can see it's really nice and simple. You enter the phone number here, and after we're done with our blocks editor, it'll make a phone call to this number. So we'll put in the standard 555, 555, 5555, because I'm not sure if I want everybody in the world who sees this to call me. So great, we have our phone number set. Next step is to open up our blocks editor. And remember, when we're asking a button to perform an action, we want to go to this My Blocks tab and find our button that we created and named. And here it is, it's the Call Me button. And what we want to do is grab this Call Me button, click. So when the Call Me button is clicked, what do we want it to do? Well, in this case, we want it to start a phone call. So we'll go to the phone call starter. And there's some limited options here, but if you look through the list, you'll see one called Phone Call Starter Make Phone Call. Hey, that makes sense. Why don't we go ahead and drag that right into our Call Me button click. So when the Call Me button is clicked, do what? Make the phone call. And we've actually completed the first part of this. So why don't we drag in our emulator here, and I'll click the Call Me button that I just created and see what happens. Hey, what do you know? The emulator's dialing my number.